Hey, Good News family. This is Tana Heineman, the host of our Now What podcast. This is where we unpack Sunday's message and we talk about how to practically apply it to our everyday lives. I love that you're here with us, and I love that we get the opportunity to spend more time with our pastors and have them teach us even more what the Word has to say about our everyday lives. We learn from Jesus that one of the best ways to grow is in community together. So join us as we unpack Sunday's message. Hey, Good News family. How are you guys?
Good.
You know,
Spunky?
It's 9 a.m.
Chipper? Yeah. What time did you wake up oh, no, we talked about it. You woke up this
like
morning at 3.
Yeah.
What time did you wake up this morning?
4:45.
Why 4:45?
I got things to do.
Yeah. Well, my alarm starts at 5, but I get out at 5:20. So I was going to say we've had plenty of hours to wake up now.
But not fully awake.
Oh, my heavens, you guys. I don't know what I'm getting today, but I'm happy because the kids are getting out of school this week because it's almost Christmas. My college kids are coming home, except for that they keep changing what day they're arriving, and it's kind of stressed. Like, will you just make up your mind? I want to see you, but I'd like to know when I'm going to see you, when I need to have more food is basically the problem.
You just need to relinquish control.
I can't.
Yana.
I can't. They come home and they demand. They expect high-calorie meals, and
No, but I'm talking about you. You want to be in control of everything. Like you want to be in control of
Like
this
Janet
podcast.
Jackson.
oh my God,
Yeah.
of who?
Janet Jackson. Control.
Listen, it's a good song. I have so many things I could say about Janet, but I'm going to I do have a Roomba named after her.
Focus.
It's like,
I'm just letting you know. Okay, we have cookies and carols on Wednesday night. I hope you guys are coming wearing your ugly Christmas sweaters. And I think you two are actually singing solos of Christmas carols on Wednesday. Maybe I wasn't supposed to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm about to say Christmas is the funnest time of the year, and y'all are duds. So, okay, let's move on. Let's move into, like, the nativity. We all put our little nativities out, and this week
is
you
it
decided...
nativity or nativity?
I never heard
Nativity
it.
scene? Nativity scene.
Is that a
I don't
hard,
know.
hard A?
Nativity scene. Nativity scene. I don't know.
Which
you
part
know?
of Nebraska?
Yay or nay?
Omaha?
Nay.
Are you?
Stop. I am.
Nativity?
Stop.
Nebraska's got this weird southern accent for some
I did
people.
live in Oklahoma for 5
Yeah.
years.
Is it a creek or a crick?
It's a creek
Okay.
and a truck, pickup truck. Yes, not pickup, not creek, not wash. Okay, listen, we got to focus. We have some shepherds to talk about. The little guys in the nativity scene.
That did not sound good.
No, it's the nativity scene. And they get kind of overlooked and overshadowed or whatever. So I love that you decided to focus on them this Christmas. It's so nice of you. How many shepherds are in your nativity scene?
I don't have one. I don't even know what that is. A nativity?
Oh, my gosh.
I don't know
So
what that
little-
is.
We
Do you have
don't
a
have a
nativity
nativity scene.
Oh,
but
my gosh, my heart is
It's
breaking.
the little baby Jesus, the whole...
The Mary,
By
Joseph,
himself.
the-
That's it. Jesus
The wise
is the only
men
one
that are
counts.
there a little early because it's a baby in the manger, but the magi are already there, you know.
Listen, that's for
It's
next
the little.
week.
It's like the Marvel figurines, only it's with Jesus stuff.
I
Oh,
actually have a
house.
Marvel figurine nativity scene. Just kidding.
If there was a
But that would
Lego,
be
I
really
bet
cool.
there is a
Y'all
Lego
would
one.
have one.
I would do a Lego one.
A Lego one would be a really cool idea.
I know.
Okay.
I'm a fount of really cool ideas.
We need to make that happen. A Lego
I guarantee it
nativity
already
scene.
exists.
I don't know how I get
You
to
think
be
so?
Oh, yeah.
put together with geeks here.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Okay. Welcome to the podcast with my lovely, grumpy co-hosts today. All right, let's talk about the shepherds. I think my nutshell is the shepherds were trusted with the news. You talked about their perspective, their action, and then how it should affect us, right, with the shepherds. So you talked about God chose to reveal what he was doing to a group of people that were just doing their common, regular job.
That's right.
And that he chose to do this.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I just want you to talk about it a little bit more. Like, what do you guys hear in that statement? Just doing their common, regular job.
Well, I mean, sometimes, like I said on Sunday, we have this idea that God is looking for people that are ready, that are prepared, that are, productive, great execution, all of these different things. And time again in the Bible, I see God doing the opposite. Like, if it was, let's face it, if it was the three of us trying to pick the people that this great message that's going to be of hope and of joy, great joy for all peoples, like, well, you wouldn't have picked the shepherds. Like, I wouldn't do that. Like, it to me is a bad idea. And so the fact that God did that, I asked myself, what is he trying to show us? You know? And then it reminds me of my own story when I disqualified myself. And so I think back and I say, wait a minute. God has a habit, if you will, of doing this. Just picking people that we will disqualify, that we would not even give them the time of day. But he does that. And so the question is, why does God seem to have a habit of doing this? And I think is because that's, he shows his glory to people like that. He shows the fact that, hey, you don't think they're able to do it. So when it gets done, like, who gets the glory? Who gets the accolade? Who gets the praise? Well, God does.
Yeah.
Also, this is a total what if. There's no evidence for this, but every once in a while, that's where my brain goes. I wonder if God speaks to many people and only a few listen and obey.
That's good.
I've wondered that about Abraham. Abraham was unique because he believed. It doesn't mean God didn't speak to anyone else.
Yeah.
But again, total speculation, but the idea I think fits. What we would flip. We talk about flip kingdom or an upside down kingdom, and I think I've said even on here that I think we're upside down. We're the ones that are wrong. Like, God's presenting an upside down. He's presenting right side up. He's helping us realize we're upside down.
We're upside down.
And so even if we're talking leadership, to flip to another thing, we wouldn't pick I don't think, hey, let's start a church with the people that don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I think on a leadership side, it's scalable, but it's not forgetting the people that are, everybody's worth it. And the message is for all. And so it was an incredible thing. The story's awesome.
And I picture us sitting around trying to determine, okay, we've got to do something, and what we look for in who we're going to ask, and I'm always the one I get accused of being the, I'm looking on all the negative sides and just trying to pick holes in it until you can prove it that, yep, okay, you can speak to all of those, then okay, great, we'll move forward. And just thinking how we would analyze, I just picture the Trinity sitting up there chatting and like who we're going to tell and who we're going to use, and, these shepherds, and then even thinking about their voice being influential. They're not going to be listened to by so many because they're looked at as less than. And yet he still knew that who he knew he wanted to hear would hear through the shepherds. So he was confident in that. And I think there's something about I can't find my words, but just I'll tell you this. I was reading in my Advent devotional a handful of days ago. I'm actually going to jump ahead. My Advent devotional is talking a little bit further ahead in the story, and I think you already said we're talking about the wise men, or otherwise known as the Magi, next week. So I'm jumping a little ahead by saying the story, but I thought it fit here. It's what I thought of when you were preaching on Sunday, of the wise men come to King Herod because there's a rumor going around that Jesus has been born, and Herod calls in the chief priests, and the chief priests, they've heard the rumor, and they tell him, oh yeah, he was born over here, whatever. And they do nothing. They could care less. They just go back to what they're doing. And then the devotional talked about, and what was Herod's response? Herod was deeply threatened and so afraid that he immediately murdered all the little children, all the little boys, because he was afraid of the rumor he had heard. And that's three different responses, even just right there. And then versus what the shepherds did, they didn't stand there and go like, well, that was kind of cool. It looked like some kind of cool thing that happened in the sky, and we go back to the sheep. No, they did something with it. Yeah. And they weren't threatened by it. They were empowered and excited and thought, this is worth going out of our way to go figure out who this is and what this is all about. Yeah. And it just makes me think about our different responses to things that God does or reveals or says even in his word. It doesn't have to be a big, profound thing in the sky, but even just something he says in his word. Does it move us? Do I respond? Do I have faith in action? Or do I worship him? Or do I testify, which is where you went in the message? Or do I just go, That's cool.
Yeah.
Whatever, and move on.
Well, and that speaks to me at least, because in our culture sometimes we gravitate to things that are sensational. And so,
a good
wow,
word.
look at that. It's so amazing, so awesome, but we do nothing with it, and that just really captured my imagination when I'm thinking, this angel shows up, and think of that scene. I mean, that the heavenly hosts begin to praise God, glory to God in the highest heaven, and peace on earth on whom his favor rests upon. And imagine if we were there, see that. Like, some of us would still be talking about that in our church without going out and sharing that message. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's like, wow, God did something so amazing in our midst. But it's supposed to be shared. And that's what they did. They were compelled to go see this thing that they declare by faith has happened. They did not see it. They were just told that it happened. And they said, let's go see this that has happened. And then they were just, when they seen it, they were like, wow, we really have to tell everybody what we seen. And then, and I think it was Pastor Greg who brought it up when we were doing our preaching team meeting and talking about the message. And I talked about the fact that we've been equipped to be witnesses. And he said, we are witnesses, but witnesses, the important thing about witnesses is that they testify. So you can witness something and be quiet.
Yep.
Like I said, in where I come from, snitches get stitches. So if I see something and you come ask me, it's like, nope, I did not see anything. Nope. But the important thing is that you testify of what you have seen, that you testify of what you have heard. And I think that this such an incredible thing that they did. And the component, you brought it up, Tana, about they were just going about doing they're common dudes, regular dudes, and they're doing a job. And sometimes that's another place that my brain goes to. It's like, I'm doing a job, and then you interrupted what I'm doing, and I have a responsibility. So if you're the type of person like you, Tana, high on responsibility, and it's like, I got a job to do. Okay, you interrupted my job, and now you left. So now I got to stay doing my job because it's my responsibility. So they left. I mean, like, sometimes we don't understand that their duty, their job is to take care of sheep.
Did they do you think they herded the sheep with them, or they left them in the field with a couple guys and went on? This is just
I think they left at least one dude.
They left a guy behind and
like,
said, you watch the sheep. And he's like, dang it.
I don't know,
jerks.
because I will not be the dude that stays. I'm like, I want to go see.
And I don't want to be by myself if that dude in the sky shows up again. Like, he might zap me or something.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Who
That's a
knows?
great question. But I'm just thinking, some of us will be so preoccupied with our current assignment that we will totally miss what God is doing. And again, like I said, God wants to reveal to us what he is doing. Not only what he did. He did is great, and we get to testify to what he did, but what he is currently doing. And so I think that's a wonderful picture that we get through the story of the shepherds.
Yeah.
What's one thing right now that comes to mind that you could testify that God is doing in your life?
It's like our one-on-one sessions.
You're welcome. We're going to do it on
What
camera.
we can do.
I don't even have an answer to my own question. It just popped in my head.
Year-long thing for me is calming down, just slowing down, allow things to happen, and just kind of process more slowly.
That's good.
So,
For me, I would say that one thing that I can testify that God is doing is teaching me to be patient in the waiting, and that the things, so sometimes I think of things that God has promised and I don't see them come to fruition yet, and therefore do I need to do something to expedite the process? Well, no. In this season, he is doing those things, and he has given me small glimpses, whether it's in my own family, immediate and not immediate family, what he's doing there in restoring relationships, and things that he is doing even here at our church, with our Good News family, and he gives me like a small glimpse of like, see, I'm working here, but it's helping me. He's at the same time helping me see that this is one small pebble or rock, amongst everything else that he is doing. So that's what I would say, that I can testify that he is at work, and he shows me small glimpses of that, and it makes me be hopeful, and helps my faith, be stronger, if you will.
Yeah, that's good.
How about you?
I would say something he's been revealing to me about himself in the last few months is that I can trust him when he asks me to keep my mouth shut. Yeah, that I don't have to talk so much, and that even though I might have something smart to say or something valuable to say, sometimes it's better for me to just be quiet and let him say it to the person, or let him handle it, and make me trust the process. So I've had to be a little bit quieter in the last couple of months than I normally tend to like to be. So I realize you guys probably don't believe that, but
No, I could see that.
yeah.
Yep.
Personal life, just relationships, friendships, all of it. It's just like, yeah, I don't have to speak all the time. Okay, what about, stay on the same line about how God, you hit on it, and I know that we kind of hit it here, but I want to go a little bit deeper on it, about whether you see yourself as great or insignificant, God wants to reveal himself to you. If I see myself as insignificant, you can say that line, and I can be like, nope, whatever. I don't believe it. So what do we do with that? How do we believe that? Why do we think it? I don't know. What would you say?
Well, I think it begins with it actually being some form of good news. We're talking about a radical event in the story, and it would be hard not to talk about. I think it's got to be okay that different people talk within their, I'm going to call it language. If we were talking about different languages, we'd obviously assume that. But I was kind of picking on nativity versus nativity.
Yeah.
You should never think about that again. But I'm just playing. But be confident, because who cares? If you're going to go share, let's say you do like your nativity scene or your nativity scene. I'm going to make it funny. Anyway.
I like my scene of baby Jesus and
Yeah,
everybody and the camels.
absolutely.
And we're just not going to call it a word anymore.
No, that's the word. That's
Yeah.
a nativity scene. So I think when you love that, then celebrate it. Be happy with it. And if other people are grumpy about it, and I'm not, I genuinely am not.
Right.
Who cares? That must not diminish your thing. I mean, it will and can if it's too much. But man, I want you to be confident. So you see angels show up, man, say something. And if your version is what had happened was, then do that. I don't care what words you're doing, because you're probably telling people that speak the same way as you do. You're not running into someone's office you don't know and start spouting stuff. That version of evangelism makes no sense. But man, use your words, use your style to express what you've experienced. And it may be a big event that happened in your life, and you found God and he found you, and things have changed. It may be a steady kind of change over time. Regardless, be willing to share that change, that hope. There's a verse that is mostly used for something called apologetics, which is, at least our version now, is to intellectually prove God and things like that. But the verse is always be ready to give a defense.
Yeah.
But it's not the word sometimes translated, but it's apology. It's the Greek is apologia. It's a reason. Always be willing to give a reason. And if your reason is, look, I don't know, I just know I'm changed. That is your apologia. That is your reason. And that's exciting and inspiring. And not everyone's going to get it, maybe a small percentage, but your willingness to share it. Not everybody gets my story, but some do, and my style. And I love that. So anyway.
That's good.
I think that when you use the word insignificant, like some people may feel like they are not enough, they're insignificant. I've encountered many believers, many of us who would not call ourselves insignificant, but we live like we are. So, if I go and ask, we could be on a Sunday morning and we have an auditorium full of our Good News family and ask, how many of you feel you're insignificant? You may get 5 hands come up. And one of those is like, oh, I don't really want people to know my stuff. But some people say, no, I wouldn't call myself insignificant. But then, why do we live like we are? So you asked the question, what do you think that is? I think sometimes is we lose one of the most important things for me personally when it comes to my relationship with Christ, which is identity. So if I truly believe that I am a child of the Most High, a child of God, redeemed by grace, empowered by the Spirit of God, and that He loves me unconditionally, and that I am forgiven, how in the world can I be insignificant? How in the world can I live a life below what He wants for me, right? But we do. I have. And so I think that that's sometimes where the disconnect happens. And it's like, oh, God wants to do great things. Amen. God wants to do it through you. Amen. And then we get out of Sunday and Monday hits and Tuesday hits. And by Wednesday, it's like, I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah.
And so that's the reality of life. And Jesus also understands that. He understands our humanity. And so I think that sometimes for me, that's why the being rooted and grounded in who we are and our identity, it's so pivotal and so crucial. And this story in and of itself, the shepherds, it shows us that, and is an encouragement to me because, again, I'm like, He chose them. He didn't have to. He did. He chose me. He didn't have to, but He did. So,
yeah, it's a weird conflict in our culture, the idea of significance versus insignificance. And as a 80s kid, man, angst is like I feel like it's in my blood. It's like, it may be in my DNA, actually, looking back. But with my story, it's just, no, I am important. And so I feel like I had to prove it. I had to dominate things. And so I don't think I ever had small man stature syndrome, but I think I had small person being not wanted kind of syndrome. And so I'm going to create my own significance. But that comes from a personality way of thinking and stuff. I know so many people that don't have that. They're not going to step forward. They're just going to kind of, that's kind of what happens. And so, but we're not talking, when Pastor Rafael's talking about the significance thing, we're not talking about that. We're actually talking about a thing that combines with humility, where you are significant, but you know where it's from. That it's not an Americanized, and I'm not ripping on America, I love America, all that stuff, whatever. I'm saying there's a Western, and I think uniquely American view that says we make our own way and all this other stuff. It doesn't mean that's 100% not true. It means in relation to God, our identity is defined by Him, the stuff that Pastor Raphael's talking about. And so we can be both convinced of our significance and humble at the exact same time because of where our identity comes from. So
I think you said it earlier about the upside down kingdom, and it is not really that God's kingdom is upside down. Our view is upside down. And I think that's it right there. That's another example of, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to make something happen and I'm going to become significant. You already are, but the source of your significance is not in what you're doing and what you have been able to accomplish. So it's kind of backwards.
And it's hard to divide that. It's hard
it is very difficult.
To parse it, to figure out what goes where, because it's a good idea to do work and do work well.
It is,
and to plan
the Bible
ahead.
calls us
These
to
are
do that.
these are Bible principles, or ones you can find that plan ahead, do the work. The majority percentages say you will succeed, and it doesn't mean 100% you're going to, but that is the path. If you talk to people who are who whatever success is, it's because they did work. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
So they do the effort. That said, our significance still comes from God. So it's both. We can do both of these. And ideally, if he calls us, then we change directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, at least, when it comes to this topic, the truth is that there were things. So when I gave my life to Jesus, there were things that I feel very confident about, and I've never been a person that lacks confidence.
You don't say.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and humility was not a gift that I was born with, I will say.
Again, I'm shocked.
Okay, Tana. I thought you said that the Lord was teaching you how to be quiet earlier. I don't see that right
you're
now.
Like just offering them to me. I can't
I'm just
ignore
trying to
that.
see. I'm just
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to see if it's true that God is working in you and through
In
you.
spite of Tana, I want you to know this is a safe space.
Okay,
You
thank
can
you
share.
so much, Pastor Greg. See, maybe you should be the host of this podcast. Anyway,
Now
So-
what? Worship
Worship
podcast.
podcast.
oh no, let's
Shout
not
out
go
to
there.
Josh.
There it is, Josh.
Yeah. So I even forgot what I was going to say. Oh, that
You didn't
even though-
struggle with
yeah,
humility.
Like,
or
I did not
Yeah.
lack confidence,
Mhm.
but it was just when it came to things of God and God calling me to do something that seemed to me beyond my abilities. And so when it comes to spiritual matters sometimes, that's when it was like, no. Like, you want me to be what? You want me to do what? Like, no. That is like, yeah. And I think that God could have a whole burning bush for me, and he could have just talked from heaven, and I still would have had the same approach and be like, no, you got the wrong guy. Like, you really don't know me. You really don't know how messed up I am and how this is not going to work. And so I just perhaps want to speak to those that are listening right now, and maybe God has already put something in you, and there's something that God is calling you to do, and maybe something that will require a lot of faith. And at this point, you're like, no, I don't think so. I don't think that I have it in me to do that. And so when that happens, that's when we trust. That's when we rely upon him. That's when we say, you know what? I'm going to live palms up, and here it is, Lord. You grab it, you do with it whatever you want to do, and I just surrender in that way. And I think that sometimes that is the difference. There are things that we may feel very confident in, and it's like, oh yeah, this is my lane. But when it comes to God's calling and what God is specifically calling you to do, and it could be something as simple as, not simple, but as don't want to
It
say
could be
even
something just like what? Just what is the something?
the something. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'll go
So-
to help out. Hopefully, help out. You can be called to do something, but you make your money, you make your living doing something else. I spent 9 years before coming here, while pastoring, working at a printing company, and then a few years after, and then before I got laid off, working at a printing company. God's never called me to work at a printing company. I just have a mortgage that needed taken care of.
Right.
Me fulfilling my calling was actually doing the job that paid my bills while working out my calling.
Right.
So sometimes we want every single second of our lives to be utterly fulfilling.
Yeah.
If you need it to be fulfilling, you need to find ways to be fulfilled and do the things anyway. I don't
Do
know
the
if that
mundane.
helps.
No, but so the calling thing is important, but it's not all there is, because most people God is not calling to full-time ministry, vocational ministry. But I'm thinking of things like God is maybe put a desire in you, in your office, to start a Bible study,
There you go.
to start that you and another brother or sister get together and you begin to pray and invite other people in the office. That may be incredibly intimidating for some people, and that may be in you, and God is stirring you up and come on, you can do it, and you're like, nope, because I don't know what she's gonna say and what he's gonna say if my boss finds out, and so things like that I'm talking about, that it's like God is perhaps pushing you, come on, you can do it, you can do it, and you don't for years, like me, 10 years plus, running away. But then when you do it, you're like, oh man, and you see the impact, and you see other people say things, and you're like, wow, this is amazing, Lord. Why did I do this before? Well, I think it could be sometimes because of fear, sometimes it could be lack of faith, sometimes it could be because we feel insecure that we're able to, and that we're the right vessel to carry the message. So
I would say even in the obedience of that, and you even saying, wow, God, this is amazing. Why didn't I do this sooner? Not every day is amazing.
amen.
And so
Most days are days.
they're just days. You're
days.
just doing it. And so we also kind of tend to think that if we do step out in obedience and we don't feel the goosebumps and the amazing every day, then we must have missed something, or we're doing it wrong, or God's displeased or something, rather than, no, you're just doing the days. And in your obedience, there's going to be glimmers of seeds that you planted that took root, that grew. I think of the shepherds. You talked about them being in their, like being in your lane of what you know to do well. The shepherds are really good at what they do with the sheep. Really good. But for some reason, God decided to show himself to them while they're doing their job, while they're working at Walmart, while they're working at the printing company. God decided to show up in aisle 12 and just like tell you something. And then you have the opportunity then to say, well, I'm just insignificant. I'm not really sure why he showed up to me. I'm just going to go back to, whatever I was doing. Or make the journey and follow and decide, nope, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to go see what in the world is he talking about that has to do with me, and why would he tell me? And I just try to think of what they were thinking as I don't know how long the journey was from the field to where they had to go. I have no idea. But I know I would be thinking, why? Like, what? Why is he showing up to us? Where are we going? What is this going to look like? Is this going to change it doesn't say that it changed the shepherds' lives in any way. They still went back to shepherding as far as we know. They saw him, they worshiped, they got a glimpse, their lives and their eternity is forever changed, but they went back to doing what they were made to do. But they obeyed and followed and checked it out and had a story to tell.
I love what Pastor Greg said about the printing company and now being something amazing, something that he was called to do. He just needed to pay a mortgage.
Right.
And these are the kind of things that sometimes we can miss when we read the Bible. Because I'm thinking, okay, there were shepherds, and the Bible tells us so, but it says they were tending sheep in the field at night. And I'm like, that's the season of life. So like Pastor Greg had a season of life where I'm working at a printing company. I had a season of life. I'm working for this company, and you're calling me to full-time ministry. I don't see how that's going to happen. So I keep doing my thing. I keep tending sheep in the night, And so that is also important. Like God has you in a season. Be the best you can be in that season. And so like one of those things is, doing all things as unto Christ. We love to say that, but I'm like, if God has you tending sheep and you're irresponsible and the sheep are dying because you're being lazy, that's a problem. Like how in the world can God trust you with anything else? Or how can anyone else trust you with anything else? So, which I know that's probably a little bit more of the kingdom-minded series when we talked about responsibilities and stewardship. But I think that that's another important component. They were doing what they were supposed to be doing in the season that they were in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we can outsource some of these things. I don't think, I mean that negative. Like, we get older, other people can start doing stuff for us. And so we don't stay involved in ministry, or we go through times that we had to stop. Maybe you were involved when, having been a youth pastor for so long, we had most of our leaders were young adults. And then the majority of what I call big church was people who used to be youth leaders, but now aren't doing anything.
Because they aged out.
And there was nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
There was no active kind of thing. And life does get busy. And there are phases. We talked about this in executive team yesterday. There are phases that, adding another thing wouldn't be a good idea, including trying to run a group or something like that. You won't do it well and you'll break down. That said, having a sense that, I'm not for a season, and it's reversing the idea of seasons where my expectation is that I'm involved. Right now, that's not an option, but I'm looking forward to when it will be again.
Right.
And so, but it's not, well, I used to. If it used to, and your legs still move and you're still capable, it possibly needs to become I am, rather than I used to. And so just the message you saw, the thing you saw is still stirring. It's still active, that the shepherds didn't forget. They weren't sitting around.
Right.
Did angels really, do you remember, no, that was blazed into their memories, every one of them.
Sure.
And adjusted the way their expectation of everything.
Of every shift.
Of everything,
like,
yeah.
They're like, somebody going to show up again tonight?
Yeah, exactly.
Forever.
So that we're capable of forgetting that and then outsourcing it to someone else. Someone else will take care of it. The pastoral staff will take care, or the church staff will take care of it, and things like that. Look, that we can, if there's you need a pen for a ministry thing, Bib probably is a great person to ask, but that doesn't mean Bib takes on the responsibility for your version of evangelism.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's good.
I know.
You talked, no.
I lack confidence.
I'm not saying that's good anymore.
I'm just playing.
We talked about the shepherds. You said that they were they had faith in action, and they willingly witnessed, which means they testified. They didn't just like see something that happened. They actually testified to it, and they worshiped. And I find myself asking, do I respond that way when I learn something about God? When he reveals something to me, do I respond in worship? Or what do I do? Do I just, I don't know, what do you do when you learn about God? Or how would it be worship when God reveals something to you? What does it look like? Some people are going to immediately break out in song, but worship does not mean singing a song only.
Are you asking specifically about worship or about all response?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
However you want to answer it. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't have a clear question I want to ask you. I just want you to speak to the response of worship when God reveals himself to you. What does it look like? Do you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it was so for them, going back to the shepherds, their response was worship, and it says that they went back glorifying and praising God. So glorifying is, like talking about how majestic, his splendor, his honor. So, and then praising is like, man, how great are you? Like, we can't believe that you picked us to share this with us and to show us what you're doing. And we got to see the Messiah, the promised one. And now Israel is going to be restored, and we're not, so I can imagine, you could let your imagination go as to what they were doing. So when it comes to that, like, how do you respond when God shows up? When God shows up in your life, I say that there's no, and I said this on Sunday, I don't think that there's a more appropriate response than worship when God shows up. And what I mean is, depending on what that looks like. So you talked about, Pastor Greg, about leading a group. Maybe it's not the time for you to do so because of everything going on in life, but it's not like, now I'm going to stay there and never do it.
Right.
I did it
now,
once.
not never.
Yeah. But part of the point of worship, or that word worship, that sometimes we get, a little confused. It's like, yes, it is adoration. Yes, it's to be in awe of God and what he's doing and his character. That is worship. It is singing. It is, bowing down. It is lifting hands. But it's also living a life that honors him. That is worship. That is our act of worship. And so in serving, your church, and you could be from Good News, you could be from any other church watching, serving in your church. That is worship. Serving in your community, that is worship. honoring the Lord with the way that you work in your job, it is
Yeah.
worship.
Yep.
Honoring the Lord with the way
Yep.
that you study, if you have the privilege to actually go to school, that is worship. And that you do it in a way that honors Him, meaning, you know what? You do what is required of you to do. You do your homework. You go to class. You don't stay up doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing, right? So, like, those are things that are worship to the Lord. And so, for me, for example, worship used to be something that just happened on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights when I came to church. When I first gave my life to Jesus, I thought that was worship. But then God was requiring more and more of me. And let's say it began with giving, actually financial giving. And I told Pastor Jason this some time ago because he was talking about stewardship. And I said, I remember when I received a raise and I did not want to tithe anymore because it's like, well, is that a New Testament? Is that an Old Testament?
Oh,
And
geez.
yeah, but the Lord's like, I was praising God, praising Him. I didn't know it was worship, praising Him for the raise, but I did not want to up my giving, right? And the Lord, and I felt the Lord, and so I said, okay, that's fine, don't do that. But don't complain if you don't receive anymore. And I was like, wait a minute. I don't like the way this conversation is going. It's like, that's fine. You just give what you've been given, but don't expect to receive any more from me when it comes to increase and things like that. And I was like, well, and again, I was taught at that time that was also worship. Me trusting the Lord, because it is not only in all what He is doing, it's also that His character. I'm glorifying and honoring His character, and if His character is faithful, right? And the one that's coming in that white horse is faithful and true, right? Like, if He is faithful, then I have to say, okay, Lord, I'm going to give. I'm going to be generous because You are faithful, and that's something that He's been teaching me and teaching me. And can sometimes, for me at least, maybe our listeners or people watching, and maybe for you guys have it all figured out. But there are characters of God that I could easily just say, like, yes, this is yes and amen. And there are other characters that I'm like, well, I don't know about this one, and just being honest. And so one of those about Him being faithful was one that I always have been like, I don't know. And why? Because I've had a lot of people in my life not be faithful. And so then you think of God as those people or that person, and you're like, no, I don't know if I can trust you. And so to me, that is worship. And so there's so much there that you can unpack, but it's an attitude, yes, and it's a lifestyle, yes, and all of that in between. And sometimes I was very good at yelling, praising, lifting hands on Sunday morning, but then the rest of the week, I didn't see that as worship.
Yeah.
But it is.
Yeah. Two things that pop in my head. I like the idea of honoring the family name. And I'm sure over years I'll talk about this, that for us, starting a new family, Angie and I just decided we were going to start a completely new family. We were going to move on. And so for us, being Wallace's was an important thing, and still is. And so that was one of the ways we communicated with our boys, is, no, this is meaningful. It doesn't mean we're better. It means that it's meaningful. And so we then respond from that. We act because this is who we are fundamentally. So I wouldn't ever do that because that doesn't represent who we are. The second thought was, at some point I also started trying to rebel against myself. And what I mean is, so you're talking about giving. I remember having those where you're like, oh, this is hard. And somewhere in there, I don't know where I got this, but I went, if I'm pushing against something I think is God or godly or whatever it is, but I'm starting to try and break it down and figure out, do I really, before tax or after tax and all this other stuff? And I'm like, I feel gross. I'm actually going to go the opposite of what I want. I'm going to do the thing that I think is, I'm I'm going to do the bigger amount because I'm arguing against it.
100%. 100%.
So I'm going to rebel against my own stuff that's going on. Something in the way I was raised is when I was younger, especially, I'd want to lie, and I found it easy to lie as a teenager, and I was good at it. I don't want to say I am anymore, but I have no idea. But I was good at it. I could give you a plan on how to lie to your parents, because you just don't. You got to give some information, but not too much, right? I mean, I've worked it out.
Don't help our listeners learn how to lie. Don't tell them anymore.
If there's a teenager listening, then keep going. But as I became an adult, I actually realized I still had the want to do that, and I just refused. And so I'd hit things and I would rebel against my very desire to do it, and it actually helped black and white that decision.
Yep.
And I'm very gray in my thinking. I'm not black and white until it becomes black and white. And that was one of those things that really kind of helped. Anyway, it's not really advice other than rebel against yourself sometimes.
But that in itself ties into that is worship, because that is like, if I'm looking for where the line is and how close I can get, then I'm not worshiping. If I'm like, forget that, that's not who I want to be.
Yep.
This is God. This is Jesus who died for me. This is my salvation, my eternity, my redemption, a steadfast love, new mercies every morning, you name it, all of this. And I'm sitting here trying to see how far I can go. Absolutely not. I want to flip all the way to the other side.
Yep.
You can't ever outgive. You can't outlove. You can't outworship. You'll never be too faithful. Whatever.
I'll give you a really practical one that this year, actually, I started coming on Wednesday nights before I was Pastor Greg, and I was just, I knew the trajectory of things, but I felt like the right thing was to do was try and get involved. I didn't want to come on Wednesday nights. Bluntly, if I'm just me, please understand, I'm going to say something that's going to sound, I don't know how it's going to sound. If it's just me, I don't need to come on Wednesday nights. I'm not going there because I'm going to learn something or whatever. In my mind, okay?
Yep.
What I recognized is, though, that I lacked relationships, not just at Good News, but anywhere. And what I found was, I'm actually talking with other people. Something in me, I recharge alone, so I'm like, doing nothing is so much easier than doing something. And so I actually had to rebel against that. And so I start coming on Wednesday nights because I should, and it's a good idea, but the motivation to really do it was because something in me was pushing against doing what I knew was a good thing to do. So
I love that
good.
honesty. I think we should wrap up. Oh, man, then you said that line. If worship didn't matter, why is Satan after it? That, yes.
Maybe that's something that the listeners can think through and ask the Lord, because it is really important. I mean, Satan went after Jesus' worship. Told me, if you worship me, all of this will be yours.
Consider it, I'm not saying this is the answer, just throwing it out there. Consider the Job story, and the Satan there says, I don't think Job's faithful to you, because the only reason he's faithful to you is because you're faithful to him. Take away some of his good stuff. And there's a removal. Is there a possibility that this challenge to worship is an accusation against the honesty about our and genuineness of our faithfulness to God?
It makes me go ahead.
We would prove him right if we deny God.
Yeah. It
That's
makes
good.
me think of my hot button lately for the last several years, Daniel 3:18, where the guys are getting ready to be thrown in the fiery furnace, and they say, we will not worship or bow down to you, King. We will only worship God, the one true God, and he's going to show up and save us. But if not,
Even if he doesn't.
And that was a point in my journey with the Lord where it had to become settled of, we worship, we sing songs. If I only hear one word from him, if he never does another thing for me, do we mean it? And if we don't, and some days we don't. Some days we're in there, we're singing the song, and we're like, I'm not exactly sure I really want to sing this today. I don't think I mean it. That's okay in your humanity, but we have to wrestle out why and do something with it. Because what you also said is the one thing God does not have unless I give it is my worship.
Yeah.
And he's not forcing it. It's my choice. And as I know him, I can't but not give him my worship in everything, every area of my life. And some days it looks prettier than others. And some days my worship is saying, I'm sorry.
I want to say that, so the only thing that God doesn't have unless you give it is your worship. But also, the only thing that can destroy the works of the enemy and the fear in your heart and mind is worship. So Satan knows that, listen, when you begin to worship and you magnify who God is, and then you live because of what who you believe he is, then the kingdom of darkness is threatened. Because now Rafael is not sitting over here, woe is me, and look at that, and I thought God was faithful, and look at what happened in my life. No. I'm saying, well, regardless, like you're talking about Job, Pastor Greg, it's like, you're talking about the Hebrew boys. It's like, whether he comes through or not, I'm going to rebel against my own humanity. And I'm going to push through and worship him because I know that he is worthy. And when you get to, when we are in that place, in every situation, I mean, like the enemy be like, okay, can't mess with this dude or can't mess with this girl. And so I think that is so threatening.
Yeah.
So
you eventually teach yourself. You get up at 4:45 in the morning. That didn't happen naturally unless you're
I don't
so
want to
old
do that.
that it happens. We get older and suddenly we wake up at apparently stupid hours. But,
no, I don't want to wake up this early.
But
I just want to put it out there.
But when you're exercising, you get up, I don't know, 5:30, I'd guess. That doesn't happen natural. You have to set an alarm, but you do that for a year, and now you wake up at 5:30. And Saturdays are dumb. Maybe if you don't want to exercise, and you're like, I woke up.
No,
I slept into 5:45.
But you know what's actually in reality something that's happening, and Victoria was telling me, my wife is saying, like, why do you get these headaches on the weekends? And what happens is that since during the week I'm waking up early every day, and then on Saturday I go to bed really late on Fridays. Like, I'm going to sleep in on Saturday. Then I sleep more than my body's used to. I go to bed later than my body's used to, and then wake up feeling like garbage on Saturday. And I realized, you know what, that's kind of dumb. Like, I just need to, make sure that I don't do this anymore because every weekend I was waking up not feeling great and a big headache and all that. So,
but I think you get into patterns, and so you start doing the stuff that you're talking about. Man, this becomes your natural reaction. What takes effort at one point. We talked about tithing. Most don't even think about tithing anymore.
Right.
Why? Because you went through the weirdness and the difficulty, and you were able to write $100 check. So, but then you hit the $1,000 check. I don't know. I don't know where you're at, but you solve it as you go. You scale up. So.
I think the wrap up ending question is, we're just going to repeat what Pastor Greg said, is what area do you need to rebel against yourself in, so that you recognize your significance before the Lord, that he has brought you his story, that he wants you to be his witness, and that he deserves the worship for it. So that we all have areas, no matter what areas we feel like, I've gotten that one settled. Holy Spirit's so kind, isn't he? And there's a new one. Great. We're always growing, and we're always needing to reflect on my humanity. Is there's another area I need to rebel against myself in, because God is worthy of that worship. So anyways, listeners, we're so glad you were here today. Nativity. Go check out your nativity scene. If anybody finds out if Lego has made a nativity scene, please email me and let me know, because I want to purchase it. Because I love the nativity scene. It's nativity. I can't even do it.
Nativity.
It's nativity. No. Okay, tell me how to say it too, people. All right. Have a wonderful week. Don't go into debt over Christmas. Okay, be smart.
Yes.
Make homemade gifts if you need to. Remember the Scotch tape, because wrapping happens at weird hours. You just got to have Scotch tape. Amazon sells Scotch tape. That helps. What other great things? Oh, we'll see you on Wednesday at Cookies and Carols, and then this coming Sunday is Sunday Best.
Yes.
So y'all got to look sharp. I know, even you.
I don't have anything.
I'm going to wear a t-shirt that says Sunday Best.
There you go.
All right, we love you guys. Have a great week. We will chat again next time.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining us today. We would love for you to tell others about the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to it too, because this will help others find out about it. If you missed it before, we love to hear from you. So if you have any stories to tell about how the message impacted you, or maybe you have a question or comment, make sure you email us at podcast@goodnews.church. Y'all, this is my favorite day of the week. So go give away what you just learned, and we'll chat again next time.